In this problem, I'm given tan theta as negative 1/3, and I'm also told that sine theta is greater than 0. So I needed this information, so I'm going to make a little circle here, my unit circle, or actually just my circle, my quadrants. And I have quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. All students take calculus. So my tangent is negative. Well, my tangent is only going to be positive in quadrant 1, which is all, and quadrant 3, which is just tangent. So my tangent is going to be negative. But I still have a choice of this quadrant here or this quadrant here. That's why I need to know that sine theta is greater than 0. That means it's going to be this quadrant here. So my angle is going to be in quadrant number 2. I'm going to redraw my quadrants. So I know that my angle is going to be here someplace. I don't exactly know where, but I know that's where it's going to be. So my reference angle is here. I would drop my perpendicular here. And I know that tangent is equal to negative 1/3. Well, that means that sine is going to be positive 1, and cosine is going to be negative 3, because tangent is sine over cosine. Well, if tangent is negative 1/3, sine is 1, cosine is 3, I need to find the length of my hypotenuse. So I want to find the length of my hypotenuse. I have 1 squared plus 3 squared equals hypotenuse squared. 1 plus 9 equals h squared. H squared equals 10. So h is equal to the square root of 10, which cannot be simplified. So my hypotenuse is the square root of 10. Now, don't fall into the mistake here of knowing since tangent is sine over cosine, of thinking that sine, this is a mistake here. Even tangent is sine over cosine, and we know that's equal to a negative 1/3. Sine does not equal negative 1 or 1, and cosine does not equal negative 3 or 3. And I know this because when I have a right triangle, any kind of a right triangle, the longest side is going to be my hypotenuse. And if that is 1, then I could not have a side of 3, and I could not have a side of 1. So generally speaking, unless you are told it is a unit circle with a hypotenuse of 1, if you're not told it's a unit circle, I would assume it is not a unit circle and figure that we're going to have to figure out what the hypotenuse is. Once we know what the hypotenuse is, then we can use SO, CA, TOA to figure out our values. Sine, opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent, opposite over adjacent. So I know my values here. I know the sides of the triangle. Why don't I start trying to figure out my values? Let's see if I can do this over here. Not here for my values. Sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, cotangent, just like that. I know it is in quadrant 2. I know it's in quadrant 2 right here. Quadrant 2, all students take calculus. The only one of my trigonometric functions that's going to be positive is sine. So sine is going to be positive, so is cosecant. Cosine is going to be negative, so is secant. Tangent's going to be negative, so is cotangent. So I've got my different functions labeled, and I have the positive or negative signs. Now I have to calculate them. So sine is going to be opposite over hypotenuse. So 1 over radical 10. I'll do that down a little bit lower, make myself a little calculation area here. Sine is going to be equal to 1 over radical 10. And sine is going to be positive. So I need to rationalize this. Radical 10. Radical 10. So sine is equal to radical 10 over 10. I'll fill that one in. Radical 10 over 10. Cosine is going to be the side adjacent to my reference angle over the hypotenuse, so negative 3 over radical 10. Cosine, negative 3 over radical 10. Let's rationalize the denominator. Radical 10 over radical 10. I get 3 radical 10, negative 3 radical 10 over 10. I can't, excuse me, I can't simplify that anymore. So it's negative 3 radical 10 over 10. Tangent, sine over cosine. Well, I can see they both have denominators of 10, so tangent is going to be radical 10, the numerator from sine, over negative 3 radical 10, the numerator from cosine. Radical 10s cancel out. I get negative 1/3. And in thinking about it, I didn't really need to do that because I was told as part of the problem the tangent is negative 1/3. But I did it and just showed it to you. So tangent is negative 1/3. So cotangent is going to be pretty easy. Cotangent is going to be the reciprocal of tangent. That's going to be negative 3. And as far as secant goes, that's going to be the reciprocal of cosine. So I could take my cosine, which is right here, negative radical 3, sorry, ignore that, please. Negative 3 radical 10 over 10. And I could do the reciprocal, so I have 10 over negative 3 radical 10. And then I could rationalize the denominator. But instead, I'm just going to go to my initial value of calculating cosine when it was not rationalized. So it's negative 3 over radical 10. And I'm going to flip that one upside down for the reciprocal, and I'm just going to call it radical 10 over negative 3. So my secant is going to be radical 10 over 3 negative. And I'm going to do the same thing with my cosecant. I'm going to look back at my sine value, and before I rationalized it, I had 1 over radical 10. So if I do the reciprocal of that, it's going to be radical 10 over 1, which is the same thing as radical 10. So my cosecant is radical 10. And that's how I got all 6 trig values, just by knowing the tangent and the quadrant of one of the other values.